Okay, now that we have our backend action completed, let's go ahead and go to our files page. And this time we're going to create a new front end action. So I'm just going to move myself out of the way here so you can see everything we're doing. What you want to do is click on the front end actions, and we're going to choose new front end action. Now, as always, we want to rename this action. So let's rename this delete current file. Press enter. There we go. And we do want to add an input variable because we want to pass the ID of the file that we're deleting from our database. And just to give you a visual representation of that, let's go back in here. And we can see that we have two files. Each of them have a unique ID. One is 10, one is 11. And we see this if we come into our files. We see there are two files here. And those each represented by these different IDs. And so when we click on this delete button, what we want to happen is we want to pass on this ID of 10 or 11, depending on which row we're clicking, so that it actually knows which file that we need to delete. So let's go back to our front end and let's add an input variable, and we'll call this current file to delete ID. And because it's an identifier, it needs to be of type number. And let's saying variable should be unique. Okay. So we'll say current file to, we'll just say current file delete ID and hit save. And now we need to actually pass in an event. However, since we are deleting a file, it would be nice if we add a confirmation to make sure that they absolutely want to delete that file. So to do that, let's come down here. We're going to add an event. And this is going to be a different type of event called notifications and confirm. Now, there's going to be two things that we need to create. One is what message do we want to display to the user? This is going to be typically something such as, are you sure you want to delete this file? And then we need to take their response, whether they say yes or no, and then we need to do something. If they say yes, we'll delete the file, but if they say no, then we're not going to do anything. So in order to save this message, what we need to do is we need to go back to our front end here and go to variables, and we're going to create a new app variable. And let's call this delete file confirmation message. Okay. And this is where we'll leave it type text. And then this is where we're going to type what we want to display to the user. So we'll say, are you sure that you want to delete this file? This action cannot be undone. And we'll hit save. That should be good. And then let's go back to our front end action. Go to delete current file action that we just created. And we'll click on this run endpoint. Because we didn't save it, it's going to automatically default to this. So let's go back. Let's choose our event type of notifications, confirm. This message, we'll click the yellow plus here, and we'll start typing what we just did. And so we have this delete file confirmation message. Hit OK. And then we'll call this delete file confirmation AS and hit save. Now, I do like to add description, so let's come back up to this description and say prompt for the user if they are sure they want to delete the file. There you go. That way, if we come back later, we know exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. And now we have to do something just a little bit different. We are going to come down to this add event. And what we're going to choose is a type under flow control called condition. And what we want to do is add this condition here. We're going to make sure that the file delete confirmation, delete file confirmation AS is equal to true So if they said yes, that's what we're saying here. So we're getting their response back. It's either going to be a true or false. So yes or no. If it is equal to yes or true, then we're going to do an action based off of that. So I'm going to hit save. Don't forget to put a description. We'll call this check whether they said yes or no. And hit save. That way we can see what we're doing here. And now, instead of coming down to add an event down below, we're going to click the 3 dots on that condition, and we're going to add an event inside. Now, what kind of event do we want to run? Well, if they said yes to that, what we want to do is we want to run the endpoint, and we're going to choose that delete current file input. We'll type in a response code of delete current file response. And then see this current file ID? That is going to be in our action. It's going to be the current file delete ID, and then hit OK. So remember this input variable we created? That's what we're putting here. We're passing along the row that we're clicking onto here, and we're going to hit save. Now, there's one other thing that I like to do, and that is we basically want to get a new refresh of the files that they have without them having to click the refresh page. So once we delete that, let's go ahead and add an event below. And this, instead of an endpoint, we're going to choose flow control, run action. And then there should be a get files action, and we'll choose that one. And that action is one we created earlier, which actually gets the list of files here. So that's what we're doing. We're basically saying, hey, let's rerun that again because we performed an action on here. So let's hit save. And we're almost done. Now we actually have to assign this action to this button. So let's click on the button delete. And what we want to do is we want to come up to the lightning bolt, and we're going to add a front end action. And it's going to be triggered whenever they click the button, so that's good. And then we're going to choose the delete current file. And now there's one more step, is remember in our front end action, we had a variable, an input variable of ID. Well, we need to actually set that here. So we're going to click this little T here. We'll go to variable. We're going to go to our repeating loop, row, and then we're going to choose the ID of that file to pass in. And that should be it. So now let's go ahead and build our code. Okay, now that our code is built, let's go ahead and refresh this page. And let's see if our delete button works as expected. So we'll delete test file 2 here. So we'll come up to here. We'll hit delete. We should get a confirmation. We do. Are you sure you want to delete this file? This action cannot be undone. That's that variable that we set. Now I'm just going to hit cancel because we want to make sure that if we hit cancel, it's not actually going to delete the file. And nothing happens. Let's refresh this page just to verify. And we got 2 files. But now let's go ahead and hit delete. And instead of hitting cancel, let's go ahead and say yes, we want to delete this file. And there you go. Now that was really fast, but you can see what happened is it deleted that file and then went ahead and refreshed our file page. Now, in our next video, we're going to actually take this new button and actually allow them to upload a file.